2 years ago, I was in my first year of college, and I remember that one day, after finishing class, we went to the campus restaurant, as always. There were like normal food, there was rice, there were some vegetables, some spinach or something like that, and a vegan steak. And I took that, I was like, yeah, vegan steak, great, healthy. And just to let you know, I live in France, so food is supposed to be good here. Even university restaurant food is supposed to be healthy. It's not like you don't get a cheeseburger at your university restaurant here. So it looked like pretty healthy food, and then there was like yogurt or something like that for the dessert. So we ate all of that, and then we went back to class. And there was this lecture on signal processing. And this was a really interesting subject for me back in the time. And I was really excited for it. So I sit down, I start taking notes, and 15 minutes later, I literally lose consciousness. I literally like black out. I didn't really lose consciousness, but I was unable to focus on anything. I was just sitting there, falling asleep, my eyes would literally force closed. Like, it was this bad. I would fall onto my desk, and then the professor would say, hey bro, wake up, what the hell are you sleeping here? It was terrible, because I was supposed to enjoy this. I was supposed to like learn something. And for the next 2 hours, I was struggling to stay awake. I literally had to use discipline every single second to keep my eyes open. I didn't understand what was happening to me. I thought it was normal. I thought it was just me and my metabolism. But something deep in my mind was still telling me this is not how it's supposed to be. You shouldn't be like that. There is something wrong. You need to find the problem and fix it. You're an engineer, for fuck's sake. Find it and fix the problem. And so I started digging. I started learning about nutrition. I started learning about health, about metabolism, about how our bodies work. So I literally had to reverse engineer my entire body. I started to treat it like a system, like a very complex mechanism made of many different things, and that they had to work together. And after years of meticulous optimization, I finally reached a stage of my life where I enjoy every single moment of it. I wake up full of energy. I can do cold exposure, I can go out in nature, I can exercise, I can do hard things which don't feel good and still enjoy them. Because this is how we were supposed to live. We were not supposed to be like these dorks who sit in their room all fucking day and then they become depressed. But if you don't have this end goal, if you don't have this life setup which allows you to live to your fullest potential, you're not gonna enjoy your life. Enjoying life is not about always being comfortable. It's not about sitting there and just feeling pleasure constantly. Most people don't even realize that there's a link between their health and their well-being and literally the success of their entire life. They think it's a separate thing. They think there's like things like business, financial success, and then there's health and fitness. These things are the same. In today's video, I'm gonna tell you how you can engineer your body to live up to your fullest potential. Now let's go back to the story at the beginning of this video and reverse engineer the entire thing to understand what was wrong. So I ate this meal which was made out of carbs. There was like rice and the vegetarian steak. You may think that it's healthy, but you may realize that vegetarian steaks don't really occur in nature. So the steak was obviously ultra processed and made in a factory. Rice also had a sauce added to it which was kind of fatty, but it didn't taste like olive oil or any animal fat. And because the whole thing was vegetarian, I may suppose that it was seed oils. And finally, the yogurt that I got for dessert had like 15 grams of added sugar to it. So now you understand that this meal is just plain carbs, not very nutritious, not very high protein, and I ate it before going to class and sitting down. Now what's wrong with carbs? Carbs are energy, like you need them to function. So you may think that by eating a high carb meal, your brain is going to function better, you're going to be good at studying, and you were taught like this your entire childhood. My mom used to tell me, your brain is good on sugar, so eat sugar and we're going to study. Here's the thing, when you look at people who live in natural ways, it is not how they function. When I saw a video, like a documentary about the Hadza tribe, you know, like this, one of the last full hunter-gatherer tribes in Africa. What they would do is they would go on a hunt, and right before they would chase their prey, they would find a tree with a beehive inside of it. And one of the bravest tribesmen would go inside, get stung by bees, and get the honey for everyone else. So their main carb source, like the only thing that brought them like pure sugars, was honey. And the way they would eat it, they would get it right before getting to hunt. And then after eating the honey, they would run for the next like 3 hours. They would do this high intensity and high endurance work as opposed to sitting on a chair for the next 3 hours. You see the difference here? Primal people who live in natural ways would eat carbs and then exercise. And this is how our bodies were engineered to function. Evolution is a very slow process. It takes millions of years to make changes in our genetic code. So when you compare millions of years to just 12,000 years that it took us to go from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural, to industrial, and to post-industrial lifestyle, you can see that our technological development is outpacing evolution by hundreds or even thousands times. So when your body gets all of these carbs and sugars at once, it is preparing to hunt, it's preparing to run, it's preparing to move. And what you give it in return is you sit down and immobilize yourself for the next 2 hours. No wonder you're gonna have problems. And what is happening in your body at the time is that your pancreas, which is the organ which is responsible for controlling your blood sugar levels. So you cannot have like very low blood sugar, otherwise your brain is gonna shut down, or very high blood sugar, otherwise your blood vessels are gonna basically degrade from all the sugar in it. So this organ is controlling the amount of sugar in your blood, and it does so by measuring the amount of sugar in your blood and then using hormones, so molecules like insulin and glycagon, to control other organs which take or add the sugar back into the blood. So this creates a kind of a feedback loop. If you know, in engineering we've got feedback loops. For systems which are controlled by electronics, there is a certain delay before the system can adjust itself for the change. For example, in robotics, you've got the motor which moves the arm of the robot, and there is also the sensors which detect the position of the arm. And you've got the feedback loop between the motor, the computer, and the sensor, which allows the whole software to control the arm in the right way. But it's not as easy as just taking the input from the sensor and then using some linear amplification to control the motor. It doesn't always work that way, because you can have oscillations. The system is not perfect. You can have weird resonance things where the arm is just going like that, because it's not controlling. The feedback loop is not perfect. And the same thing happens in your body. Your feedback loop is not perfect, especially if it's not functioning in the way it was designed to. So when you eat all of this sugar and now you don't use any of them, you get this huge spike of blood sugar. Your pancreas starts to panic. It starts to release all of this insulin. And this insulin is signaling to your liver to take all of this sugar out of your blood and store it immediately. And what happens is, because the feedback loop is not perfect, you take too much sugar from your blood, and now you have not enough sugar. And because you have not enough sugar, your brain shuts down. This is what you get. This is what the carb crash means. It's a crash because you get this spike in carbs, and then it goes way too low. And when it's too low, your brain cannot function properly. You fall asleep, you become this lousy kind of unable to think creature. So now that we have identified the problem, let's take a look at possible solutions. How can we improve this feedback loop to function properly? Well, we cannot really change the inside of the loop. We cannot change how our pancreas reacts to sugars. All we can do is change the inputs and the environment in which it functions. So our input is the sugar. It's what we eat. And the thing I figured out through research and my own experience is that when you eat high sugar meals with things like protein and fat and fiber, you can actually slow down the sugars. This is why people talk so much about eating a balanced diet. It's not just because of the micronutrients. It's also because when you eat your sugars together with protein and fiber, you can slow them down. You can slow the absorption down. First of all, your stomach is going to take longer to process this food. It's going to take longer for you to degrade proteins from meat and fats and fiber. And it's also going to take your intestines longer to absorb it, which gives your pancreas more time to react and make a proper response to blood sugar. Another thing that I found out is that there's different types of carbs. You could eat 50 grams of sugar, or you could eat 50 grams of carbohydrates in form of rice, and it's not going to be the same thing. I know it sounds obvious, but when you eat things like rice and slow carbs, you actually get more complex molecules. You get these larger carbohydrate molecules. When you eat just sugar, it's glucose. It's get absorbed really quickly. But when you eat long carbs, it literally means that the molecule is big. It's like starch. So the starch takes more time to break down, and then once again it slows down the sugar absorption into your bloodstream. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that all fast sugars are bad. Things like honey are great for you. Fruit, things like bananas, berries, apples, I really love them. And the thing is, if you eat them together with a high protein meal and you replace things like rice and potatoes with things like a banana or an apple at the end of it, you will realize that it's actually a better response than even slow carbs. Like, this was pretty recent when I discovered this, but when you eat fruit instead of starchy vegetables, you actually end up with a better blood sugar response. And when you take a look at our past, you actually realize that people didn't have grains for a very long time. Most of our evolution we lived eating fruit and basically root vegetables. Root vegetables were starchy, but not that much. Before we actually started to select vegetables for more starch content, the amount of calories that came from root vegetables was very low. The highest carbohydrate things we ate were actually fruits, berries, and honey. Okay, so now we've figured out what we should eat to improve the feedback loop of the system. But what other things can we do to make it function better? Now, as we just saw, when you eat a high carb meal, you get this huge spike of sugar directly available in your bloodstream. What you can do about this, and what this is even for. You can go outside and start using this energy. This energy it used to be like a gift for us because food was scarce, and especially carbohydrates were scarce. When you get to eat things like berries and fruit, it gives you an instant boost in energy, which allows you to run away from predators or catch your own prey and feed your tribe. So this is why our reward system is appreciating these things so much. This is why we love sugar. Our ancestors survived when they loved sugar because they ate more of it and they were allowed to, their body basically could run away and survive better. So what we can do about this is that after eating a meal which had sugars, maybe fruit, maybe rice, maybe berries or honey, you can go out and exercise. It doesn't necessarily mean that you should go and sprint for the next hour. You can just go for a walk. And as I figured out, there's actually research on this which proves that just going for a 15-minute walk after a meal can improve your insulin sensitivity by like 20%. So just doing that, just going out there and walking after a meal is gonna make your life so much better that like these small things, most people don't even know about them. And because I figured them out, I can actually share them with you now and you can implement them too. And I hope you do, because this is so OP. When I started doing this, I actually started feeling so much better that I could go back and study much more efficiently. Even when I was eating this junk restaurant from university food, it still was so much better. And if you eat a smaller size meal, you can actually go for a higher intensity exercise. For example, when I wake up, I usually skip breakfast. If I just work, I don't eat anything. But if I want to go to the gym right away, what I do is I would eat one banana or eat some yogurt with berries and nuts, and then go right for the exercise. And what I figured is that actually eating this in the morning, eating sugar right before a workout, is going to improve your performance and it's going to make you feel better and it's going to make you even healthier in the long term. I used to think that eating sugar before going to the gym was bad, that like all sugar is bad, I'm not going to eat anything, I'm going to wake up in this disciplined mode and go do a leg day right away. But then in the middle of my leg day, I would actually start to feel dizzy. And I understood that it was not okay. Your body is not supposed to feel like that during exercise. So I actually started eating a small amount of sugar before doing that. Natural sugar, of course. And it completely fixed this problem. So now hopefully you can see how you can approach your life as an engineer. You don't need an engineering diploma for that. You don't need a degree. You don't need any of that. You just need to see your body as a system and try to optimize it every single day. You need to try to look for the signs of things going right way or wrong way and try to improve based on that. You basically collect data about how you function. You do your research and use scientific papers and other people like Andrew Huberman and stuff. It's really good. You don't need 1,000 volunteers to conduct an experiment. All you need to do is just force them. All you really need is yourself. You collect data, you form a hypothesis. You ask yourself, okay, what could be the reason why I'm crashing? What could be the reason for my fatigue? Then you go and conduct an experiment. Do something like, I'm gonna try and remove rice from my diet and start eating something else. I'm gonna replace rice with honey, or I'm gonna replace ultra processed foods with sweet potatoes. And then I'm gonna do this for a couple of weeks and see what it does. Then I'm gonna collect data. I'm gonna write down how I feel, how my days are going, and what is my general mood. How am I performing? Is it better or is it worse? And then at the end you form a conclusion. Yes, doing this actually improved my life. Or no, it did nothing, like eating honey instead of rice changed nothing, I still feel as before. You've literally just conducted a one-man experiment and you've got results. And you don't need to be a scientist for this. Like, scientists may say, no, this is not a real experiment because you're not accounting for this bias and you're not conducting this cross-referencing and stuff. You don't need any of that because all you want to do is improve your own life. And if your results can improve your own life, it means that you have successfully engineered your body. So I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.